I want to first express my very sincere appreciation to the good people of Kansas for permitting me to participate in a discussion of a very vital subject. Your legislature has before it for consideration a bill going under the misleading title of Right to Work. The title was craftily conceived to mislead and to confuse. For the fact is that such laws, where they do exist, do not give anyone either a job or the right to work. Instead, they are operating as they were intended to operate, to weaken the ability of employees in industry to have a fair and effective say in the wages they work for and the conditions they work under. In other words, these laws undermine industrial democracy that has meant so much to Americans. Industrial democracy through which those of us who work for wages are helping to make America a still better place to live. I'm taking this opportunity of discussing this matter, which is now before the Kansas legislature, because it is not a matter that originates in Kansas, nor is it limited to Kansas. This well-financed movement to push legislation putting a prohibition on all forms of union security is a national movement. It has had its greatest success in the southern states. This year it is being pushed in 14 other states, of which Kansas is only one. States where fair-minded citizens have not heretofore felt any compulsion to obstruct or weaken labor organizations. Kansas has been selected as one of the targets this year. I believe because Kansas is considered primarily a farm state. But Kansas is also an important industrial state. Kansas industries are growing. Already Wichita, for example, is the third largest aircraft manufacturing center on the North American continent and one of the largest in the world. In Wichita, the overwhelming majority of aircraft workers belong to our organization, the International Association of Machinists, as do your railroad machinists, many of your garage mechanics, and hundreds of others in related trades. Through their union, they are able to bargain with their employers over wages and working conditions. Now, as you know, farmers ask the government for farm programs and for price supports. Union labor has consistently supported those programs in Washington. But industrial labor, through its unions, are trying to do for themselves what the farmers, out of necessity, must have the government do for them. What chance do you suppose an individual aircraft worker would have to bargain with one of the giant aircraft corporations, or an individual machinist with a big railroad company? Without his union, he can take what they want to give him, or he can get out. And I venture to suggest that most independent farmers actually know very little about how a man in the industrial shop must worry from day to day about holding his job. And that is why here in Kansas as elsewhere, as industry has developed, so unions have also developed into responsible and useful institutions. We believe that most fair-minded men or women will agree that any workman should be encouraged to join and support the organization whose every act affects his welfare and that of his family and that of the community. Does any employee who benefits from the activities of an organization, any organization, have the responsibility to support that organization? I think only an anarchist could disagree there. Should an employee be encouraged to tear down an organization which helps and protects his fellow employees? Certainly not by any person with any sense of community responsibility. Yet, that is what the so-called Right to Work bill seeks to do. Now, look at this bill from a purely selfish viewpoint. Do the farmers, the merchants, the landlords stand to benefit if labor's income is reduced? Will the citizens of Kansas be more prosperous if labor's wages are reduced, if labor's ability to negotiate improvements is weakened? I think most thoughtful citizens will agree that a well-paid labor force is the best market for farm products and the best customer for the storekeeper. Just ask yourself this question. Who is it who wants this misnamed right-to-work law? Kansas wage earners don't want it. In fact, they are opposing it. Even your former governor, Alf Landon, is opposed to it. And he states his position this way, and I quote, "It is not a question of whether we believe in the union shop or not. The question involved in this legislation is government interference with the independence of both management and labor to negotiate whatever kind of contract they may agree upon," unquote. And you see, under the pretense of protecting rights, this bill actually takes away rights. Leaders of our major church groups are opposed to right-to-work laws. Here is what the Executive Committee of the Federal Council of Churches of Christ has to say, and I again quote, "We believe that compulsory union membership should be neither required nor forbidden by law. The decision should be left to agreement between management and labor. Where either the closed shop or the union shop emerges with proper safeguards as a result of collective bargaining, we believe the agreement arrived at on this point should be approved and supported by church people," end quote. The Dean of Boston University School of Theology, Reverend Dr. Walter Mulder, recently pointed out, and I again quote, "It would appear that the current concern for some private interests to promote so-called right-to-work laws expresses either ulterior interests hiding behind a misnomer, or it expresses moral confusion," unquote. Similarly, right-to-work laws have been condemned as immoral and contrary to Catholic social teachings by leaders of the Catholic Church. And a leading Jewish rabbi recently branded the right-to-work laws as frauds. In the light of such statements by political and religious leaders, just ask yourself this: what kind of people are trying to talk us into supporting such legislation? For your own sake, for the well-being not just of union members, but of the entire state, turn your backs on this proposal to deprive your fellow citizens of a most precious right, the freedom to organize and to bargain collectively with their employers, free from government interference of any kind.